looking at this time is a stand collar. Now this stand collar, it's the first time that you're going to be being asked to draft something that's not a manipulation of your bodice block. This is all purely measurements. So the measurements we need to know. Actually, let me start off by doing a little drawing of what it is that we're going to do. The stand collar I'm going to draft for you is going to be one with a curved edge that just sits to the centre front. So it's going to come around the neck and down, around the neck and down. That's it. That's what this collar is going to do. So you could have buttons that then follow on down, but this particular collar doesn't have an overlap on it. If you were going to have a button wrap, you would just extend the measurement. I'll talk about that when we take the measurement actually. So I'm just going to trace around the front neck so you can see what I'm doing with it. And I'm also going to trace around the back neck. This is my centre front. Oops. Okay. So we really do want to do that in pencil, not a big fat pen, because who knows what difference my big fat pen is going to make. To achieve this collar, what we need to know accurately is the neck, the measurement of the neck that's going to be sewn to. So same as we did with the Peter Pan flat collar, we're going to lower the front neck by 0.5. We're going to make sure that it's at a right angle for a short amount of time. You're probably then going to find a nice piece of your pattern master and give yourself a curve. So this bit has now gone. You've lowered the neck edge by 0.5. We want to know what this measurement is and what this measurement is, like so. And the easiest way to find that is to take your tape measure and put it on its side to measure, because then you can go around a curve. When it's like flat, you can't go around a curve efficiently. Lots of tape measures have a metal end on them, which makes this quite difficult. If I'm using a tape measure like this, I usually start at 10 and then all I have to do is take 10 off the measurement. But you can also get tape measures that don't have a big metal end. So for this sort of measurement, this is the one to go for. Okay, so from my centre back, I'm measuring carefully around, and the measurement that I have is 8.7. That's a bit of an awkward measurement, but there you go, 8.7. And on the front, again, I'm laying my tape measure on its side, and the measurement that I have is 12.8. Now, one of the reasons I'm being a bit, is because I'm using a big fat felt pen. So this felt pen's got the line that I'm drawing with it is easily a millimetre. So it might be 1.5 millimetres, which is one of the reasons you're using a nice fine pencil when you're pattern cutting. But let's take it that those measurements are correct and those are what we're working with. So we're going to do the draft for this pattern, working on the half neck measurement, so that's one side of the front and one side of the back. I'll give myself a straight line, and I will give myself a line at a right angle to that, which is going to be the centre back. Lovely. Now I need to know from the centre back to the shoulder seam, and I always want to know where the shoulder seam is going to be 8.7. And from the shoulder seam to the centre front, which is where my collar's going to end, is going to be 12.8. There we go. So that is now the centre front position. I need to decide on what height this is going to be. So I would say around 3.5, 4, 5, 6 centimetres even is fairly normal. If you go higher than that, the head starts to get in the way. So if you think side view, so you've got your head, and you've got your neck, and then you've got your shoulder, you can only go as high as you can go without your head interfering with the collar, or the collar interfering with your head. And it's much shorter than you'd imagine it would be for most people. But yes, that's how you would decide on the depth of your collar. I'm going to do one that's about 4.5. So I'm lining up the 4.5 measurement on my Pattern Master and giving myself a straight line. And I'm going to also square up where the centre front would be. Now you can make a stand collar that is just a straight piece, but what will happen is, if this is your neck, and that's it will stand straight like so, and it also will sit away quite far at the front. So what you get with what we're going to do, we're going to shape the top edge, is a much neater finish, or a much neater fit. So it's the neater fit that we're going for. I need to make that top edge smaller to achieve this neater fit. And what we're going to do is we're going to divide this line into 3 sections. So I need to actually divide it by 4. So if we say it's 22, we said as for instance, that'd be 11, that'd be 5.5. So 1 plus 5, 11, 5.5. There we go. I have 3 lines that I'm going to draw straight up from our first plotted line. So what I'm saying in all of this is that this is my neck edge, this is my top edge, or what's often referred to actually as the leaf edge when you're talking about a collar. I'm going to chop that off, because what I need to do is close the top edge by roughly 2 centimetres. So I'm going to snip down into this along those lines, which I now see aren't very even at all. It's not going to make that much difference in this process. So if we were to try and close those up, they don't close because they make it pointy at this end, a bit like a dart. So now what we have to do is cut up that line to the neck edge, trying not to cut all the way through. Same here, same here. I would then recommend that you mark off the amount you want to close it by. So we're saying 0.6, 0.7-ish, isn't it? I'm going to do this to the other side because that's the one that's not in the right place. That will make sense to you in a moment. So what I'm now going to do is move that cut edge over to that line, closing up that top edge by about 6 mil. And I'm going to do the same for each of those sections. What you're aiming for here is that you're going to close the top edge, but you are not altering the neck edge, because that neck edge is going to need to be sewn to the neck of your garment, so it needs to be the same measurement. In we go. Very nice. Now from the drawing I did, we know this needs to be a curve, so you can draw your curve in here. You can do it by hand. You could use your pattern master to help you out. But that's the basic draft for the stand collar with a curved front. We have to give it an inner collar. In this case, it's not a top collar and an under collar, it's an outer collar and an inner collar. And the same applies, that we're going to have to make the inner section smaller than the outer section. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to mark where that's going to be on the same draft. So I'm taking it down by about 0.4. How much you take it down is really reliant on what fabric you're using. If you're using a really fine cotton, you could just do it 0.2. If you're using a really fat wool, you might want to take slightly more. I'm going to join those up and know that is my draft for my under collar. As I come to the curve, I'm taking it away to nothing. Okay, so now we need to make the collar proper. I'm going to start by tracing off the bigger one, which in this case is the outer collar. I'm marking the centre back. Following the line around to the centre front. I'm tracing off that lower edge which has remained the same. I'm going to mark where the shoulder seam is. I'm going to say that the grain is running with the centre back. It could run at 90 degrees to that. There are reasons why you might want to do that if you're using a striped fabric, for instance. I'm going to do the same as I did with the flat collar, Peter Pan collar, in that I'm giving it a centimetre seam allowance on the neck edge. With a collar, that makes it much easier when you're sewing it back together. And I'm going to give it just 0.5 around its outer edge or leaf edge. You can see it's got that very satisfying curve on it from the manipulation we did. Just say there, this is the outer collar. You're going to cut one plus one fuse. Exactly same instructions as we had on the Peter Pan. Oh, I forgot to mark it centre back again. Oh, I didn't. That's where grain is. Excuse me. Notching, I absolutely want the shoulder line marked. Let's mark our seam allowances to make that clear for whoever's sewing. I haven't put one on the top edge of there. The difference between the outer and the under isn't so great as I would worry about the notch on the outer edge. But what I will do is give it a notch at the centre back on both edges. That's one piece ready for action. Shall I make a messy one? Maybe. Okay, now we're tracing off the under collar. So with this, the neck edge is exactly the same as it was for the edge collar. Centre back's in exactly the same place, but then we follow the shorter line. We make sure that we've marked on the shoulder line. Our grain is going to run with the centre back. This is the inner collar. It's going to be cut 1 plus 1 fuse. Write the name of the collar on it so it can stand. And the garment size. I'm doing this off a 10 block. Lovely, that's all our annotations done. So exactly the same seam allowances on the its partner that it'll be sewn to. So centimetre around the neck edge. Just making sure that I'm square at the centre back. You don't want it, if it's not square, then you end up getting a point or a dip, which you won't want. So again, in your tech folder, if you can hand me in the working out, an outer collar pattern and an inner collar pattern. That's what I'll be looking for. Once you've done this, you can give yourself a little clap on the back for having done your first drafting from scratch. Thank you. Back in a moment with shirt collars.